Your son isn't really yours, my mother-in-law, Patricia declared, waving a piece of paper triumphantly in my face. Her perfectly manicured nails gripped the DNA test results like a weapon. I'm taking him to my house where he belongs. I stood in my kitchen, still wearing my gardening gloves, dirt smudge on my jeans from planting spring bulbs with my 6-year-old son Marcus just hours earlier. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting strange shadows across Patricia's face as she delivered what she clearly thought was her knockout blow. Go ahead, I said calmly, pulling off my gloves and setting them on the counter. My response clearly threw her. She'd expected tears, denial, maybe even begging. Instead, I was smiling. What? Patricia's perfectly penciled eyebrows drew together in confusion. Did you hear what I said? These DNA results prove Marcus isn't your biological child. I poured myself a glass of water, taking my time before responding. I heard you perfectly, Patricia, and I said go ahead. Take Marcus to your house. My mother-in-law's triumphant expression faltered slightly. In the 10 years I'd been married to her son David, she'd never seen me this calm in the face of her accusations. Usually, I'd defend myself, try to reason with her, or leave the room in tears. But not today. Today was different. I've already called David, she pressed on, regaining her momentum. He's devastated. To think you've been lying all these years, pretending Marcus was yours when really, she paused for dramatic effect, you must have used an egg donor or something equally deceitful. I couldn't help but laugh, which only seemed to infuriate her more. Did you enjoy your secret little trip to the DNA testing facility last week? The one where you convinced Marcus it was just a fun science experiment. Patricia's face paled slightly. How did you know about that? I finished for her. Oh, Patricia, I know about a lot of things, like how you've been planning this ambush for months, how you've been telling David I'm an unfit mother, how you've been trying to convince him that Marcus would be better off living with you. She straightened her designer blazer, trying to regain control of the situation. Well, now I have proof. These results don't lie. Marcus shares DNA with David and me, but not with you. You're not his real mother. I walked to my home office, Patricia trailing behind me like a shark sensing blood in the water. Opening my desk drawer, I pulled out a thick manila envelope. You're right about one thing, I said, turning to face her. Those results don't lie. Marcus does share DNA with you and David. And you're also right that I'm not his biological mother. Patricia's eyes lit up with vindication, but before she could speak, I continued. I've never claimed to be. In fact, it's all documented right here. The egg donation process, the IVF procedures, every legal document signed by David and me before Marcus was born. We chose this path together because I couldn't carry a child naturally. David knows everything. He was there every step of the way. The color drained from Patricia's face as I laid out document after document on my desk. But he said that he was devastated. I finished for her. Oh, he is. But not about Marcus's genetics. He's devastated that his own mother would go behind our backs, take our child for secret DNA testing, and try to use it as a weapon. I pulled out my phone and played a recording. Mom, how could you do this? David's voice filled the room. We've told you about the IVF, about Sarah's fertility struggles, about our decision to use an egg donor. Multiple times. This ends now. Patricia sank into my office chair, her hands trembling. But I thought, you thought you finally found a way to get rid of me, I said, my voice firm but not unkind. You thought you could use this to take Marcus away. But here's what you didn't consider, Patricia. Love and biology aren't the same thing. I carried Marcus for 9 months. I went through morning sickness, labor, midnight feedings. I'm the one who knows that he hates crusts on his sandwiches and needs his green dinosaur plushie to sleep. I'm his mother in every way that matters. Through the window, I could see Marcus playing in the backyard, his dark hair catching the sunlight as he dug in his sandbox. My son, in every way that mattered. David will be home soon, I continued. He left work early when I told him what you'd done. So yes, Patricia, go ahead and take Marcus to your house. Try to explain to a judge why you took a minor for medical testing without parental consent. Try to justify why you thought genetics trumped legal parenthood. See how that works out for you. Patricia's carefully constructed plan was crumbling around her, and we both knew it. But as I watched her struggling to process her failure, I felt an unexpected pang of pity. How empty must her life be to spend so much energy trying to destroy her son's happiness? You know what the saddest part is? I said softly. You've spent so much time trying to prove I'm not Marcus's real mother that you've forgotten how to be a good grandmother. You could have had a beautiful relationship with him, but instead you chose this. The sound of David's car pulling into the driveway cut through the tension. Patricia stood up quickly, gathering her purse and the now useless DNA results. This isn't over, she said, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. I smiled, gathering up my documents and returning them to their drawer. Actually, Patricia, it is. David and I agreed. This was your last chance. From now on, any contact with Marcus will be supervised, if it happens at all. As David's key turned in the front door, I watched my mother-in-law's face crumple with the realization that her perfect plan hadn't just failed. It had backfired spectacularly. She had tried to use my son's genetics to destroy me, never realizing that I'd been prepared for this moment all along. Through the window, I could hear Marcus's delighted cry of "Daddy" as David walked into the backyard. My family, built on love, choice, and commitment, not just DNA. And no amount of genetic testing could ever change that. The weeks following Patricia's failed DNA ambush brought changes I hadn't expected. David, usually so hesitant to confront his mother, became my fiercest defender. He blocked her number after she spent 3 days sending manipulative messages about protecting her grandson's interests. I should have done this years ago, he said one evening as we watched Marcus building a Lego tower in the living room. Every time she attacked you, I told myself she just needed time to accept you. I was wrong. I squeezed his hand, remembering all the times I'd hidden my tears after Patricia's helpful suggestions about how I could be a better mother. You're doing it now. That's what matters. But Patricia wasn't done. She started showing up at Marcus's school, trying to pick him up early. Thanks to our lawyer's foresight, we'd already alerted the administration of the situation. Each attempt was documented and added to our growing file. One afternoon, I received a call from Marcus's teacher, Mrs. Thompson. Mrs. Sullivan was here again, she said, referring to Patricia. This time she brought photos, trying to convince us she had evidence you were unfit. We escorted her off the property and called the police. What kind of photos? I asked, though I could guess. Mostly normal moments taken out of context. Marcus with a scraped knee, looking upset after a timeout. Nothing that suggests actual neglect. Mrs. Thompson paused. She seemed desperate. Desperate was the perfect word. Patricia had always been controlling, but this was different. Her mask of sophisticated superiority was cracking, revealing something darker underneath. The final straw came during Marcus's soccer game. I was cheering from the sidelines when I heard her voice behind me. You think you've won, but I've hired a lawyer, Patricia announced loudly enough for nearby parents to hear. We're going to prove you're an unfit mother. Did you know she can't even have children of her own? She stage whispered to another mom. I turned slowly, aware of the curious eyes watching us. Patricia, this is Marcus's game. Don't do this here. Do what? Tell the truth. She pulled out her phone. I have videos of everything. How you yell sometimes, how Marcus cried last week when you made him finish his homework before playing. A judge will see. See what? I interrupted calmly. That I'm a normal mother. That I set boundaries. That sometimes parenting is messy and imperfect. Other parents were moving closer now, drawn by the drama, but also, I realized, forming a protective circle around me. These were people who'd seen me volunteer at school events, host playdates, cheer at every game. Mrs. Harrison, one of the dads, called out, I think you should leave. Now. You don't understand, Patricia protested. She's not even his real mother. I understand perfectly, said Emma, another soccer mom. You're harassing my friend and disrupting our kids' game. Security is already on their way. Sure enough, the field's security guard was walking over. Patricia's face flushed as she realized her audience wasn't sympathetic. This isn't over, she hissed before storming off. That evening, after Marcus was asleep, David and I sat in our backyard, the spring air cool against our skin. I filed for a restraining order today, he said quietly. The lawyer says with all the documentation we have. The unauthorized DNA test. The school incidents, today's scene. We should get it approved quickly. I leaned against his shoulder, feeling the tension of the past weeks finally start to release. How are you doing with all this? He was quiet for a moment. I keep thinking about when we first decided to use an egg donor. Remember how scared we were? Not about the genetics, but about whether we'd be good parents. I remembered those days clearly, the fertility treatments that failed, the heartbreaking decisions, the hope that came with choosing another path to parenthood. And now look at us, he continued. We've got this amazing kid who loves science and soccer and has your exact same laugh. DNA be damned. Meanwhile, my mother, who shares his genetics, can't see past biology to love him properly. Or to love you properly, I added softly. She's hurting you too. David nodded, his eyes glistening in the dim light. You know what Marcus said to me yesterday? He asked if Grandma was sick because she keeps acting scary. Our 6-year-old shouldn't have to worry about that. I thought about Marcus's question, about Patricia's increasingly erratic behavior. Maybe she is sick, in a way. But that doesn't make it okay. We sat in companionable silence, listening to the distant sound of traffic and the wind rustling through trees. Despite everything Patricia had put us through, our family felt stronger than ever. She had tried to use genetics to drive us apart, but instead, she'd only proven how unimportant DNA really was to real family bonds. I got a call from the lawyer today too, I said finally. She thinks we should consider pressing charges for the unauthorized DNA test. Apparently, it's a form of medical assault to test a minor without parental consent. David tensed beside me. What do you think we should do? I thought carefully before answering. I think we need to send a clear message that this behavior won't be tolerated. Not just for us, but for Marcus. He needs to see that we'll protect him, even if it means making hard choices. He pulled me closer. When did you get so wise? Probably around the time I realized that being a mother has nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with love. As if on cue, we heard Marcus call out from his bedroom, probably another request for water, his favorite bedtime delay tactic. As we stood up to head inside, David caught my hand. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For being exactly the mother our son needs, DNA test or not. I smiled, remembering Patricia's triumphant face when she waved those test results at me. She had thought she was destroying my family, never realizing she was only proving how unshakable our bonds really were. 1 year later, I sat in our backyard watching Marcus chase fireflies at dusk. The restraining order against Patricia had been approved months ago, bringing a peace to our lives we hadn't realized we were missing. David sat beside me, both of us enjoying the warm summer evening and our son's delighted laughter. Mom, Marcus called out, running over with his hands cupped. Look what I caught. I leaned forward as he carefully opened his fingers, revealing the gentle blinking light within. Beautiful, I said, smiling at his proud expression. Remember what we learned about why they glow? Bioluminescence, he exclaimed, pronouncing the word carefully. Can we look it up in my science book again? David chuckled. Tomorrow, buddy, it's almost bedtime. As Marcus released the firefly, I thought about how much had changed since Patricia's DNA test scheme. The legal charges for unauthorized medical testing of a minor had resulted in a hefty fine and mandatory counseling sessions for her. More importantly, it had forced her to face the consequences of her actions. Last month, we'd received a letter from her therapist. Patricia had been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and was finally getting help. While it didn't excuse her behavior, it helped explain the desperate need for control that had driven her to such extremes. Sarah? David's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Everything okay? I nodded, watching Marcus chase another firefly, just thinking about how sometimes the worst moments lead us to better places. He knew what I meant. After everything with Patricia, we'd started attending family therapy ourselves, learning to set healthier boundaries and communicate better. David had finally processed years of his mother's manipulation, understanding how it had affected his own parenting. Did I tell you what Marcus said at school yesterday? I asked, remembering the story his teacher had shared. They were discussing families in class, and someone mentioned that families had to share DNA to be real. Marcus stood up and said that wasn't true because love makes real families, not blood. David's eyes softened. He's pretty amazing, isn't he? He is, I agreed. And you know what? He got that wisdom from both of us, DNA or not. The doorbell rang, interrupting our moment. It was Emma from the soccer team, dropping off some forms for the upcoming season. As we chatted, she mentioned that she'd run into Patricia at the grocery store. She actually apologized, Emma said, sounding surprised. For making a scene at the game last year. Said she was getting help now. After Emma left, David and I discussed this new development. We'd received similar reports from other parents. Patricia making amends, acknowledging her behavior had been wrong. While we weren't ready to lift the restraining order, it was encouraging to see her taking responsibility. Maybe someday, David said thoughtfully, watching Marcus head inside for bedtime. Not now, but maybe someday she can have a relationship with him again. A healthy one. I squeezed his hand, understanding the mix of hope and caution in his voice. One day at a time. Later that night, after tucking Marcus in with his beloved green dinosaur plushie, I found David in our home office, looking at old family photos. He held up one from the day we brought Marcus home from the hospital. "Look at your face here," he said softly. "That's pure love. That's what makes a mother, not some DNA test." I sat beside him, remembering that day, the overwhelming joy, the fierce protectiveness, the absolute certainty that this was my son, regardless of genetics. "You know what's funny?" I said, flipping through more photos. Patricia tried to use that test to prove I wasn't Marcus's real mother. But all she did was prove that biology means nothing compared to real love. David nodded, pulling out another photo, this one of Marcus and me gardening together, both of us covered in dirt and laughing. "I've learned so much from you about what family really means. Thank you for showing me that love is a choice we make every day." As we got ready for bed that night, I heard Marcus call out from his room. "Mom, can you come here?" I found him sitting up in bed, clutching his dinosaur. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "I made you something at school today," he said, pulling a folded paper from under his pillow. "It's for Mother's Day, but I want to give it to you now." The paper revealed a carefully drawn family portrait, David, Marcus, and me, surrounded by a huge red heart. Across the top, in his best 7-year-old handwriting, he'd written, "Love makes a family." I hugged him tight, feeling tears prick at my eyes. Patricia's DNA test had tried to prove I wasn't Marcus's mother, but this crayon drawing proved everything that really mattered. In the end, she had failed to understand the most basic truth, that motherhood isn't determined by genetics, but by love, choice, and dedication. As I kissed Marcus goodnight and turned out his light, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had weathered Patricia's storm and emerged stronger, our bonds reinforced by the very attack meant to break them. Our family's foundation wasn't built on DNA, but on something far more powerful, the daily choice to love, protect, and cherish each other, no matter what.